Welcome back to Planet Zoo, Hertfordshire Zoo edition. We should probably rename it now that Hertfordshire Zoo is actually a thing, but we won't. On today's episode we are going to be building the enclosure for the doll sheep. Now you may be wondering what I'm doing right now, and I am creating some height because I need some height in this specific enclosure, because we are going to be building an area which they can climb up and the guests will be able to see them from there. So to do that we're using the terrain tool, the terrain stamp tool, and you can kind of see how it will kind of go already, but they'll come up here and we'll smooth that out and they'll be able to come up here and the guests will be able to see them. Obviously we'll make it so that they can't escape, and then they'll have this sort of area here to chill out in if they don't want to climb. So that's what we're going to be doing today, and that will be the last animal to go into the American zone, or the well, North America according to this, but it will be the last animal and then we'll be moving on to something else. Now I have 5 different sections left, as well as potentially doing something in the middle of this lake, but I'm not too sure if I kind of want to do this kind of square, but we'll see when we get to it. But for now I'm going to be doing the doll sheep, so thanks for joining. Remember to like and subscribe. Have fun watching the video. Goodbye for now. Well, there you have it. That's an introduction. I'm getting better. So as you can see, I have created the terrain, and the reason why I put the path in is to make sure that it was even enough for the animals to walk onto and climb up. And all I've done here is just smooth out the area using the terrain push and pull, and then I went in and filled it with some rocks because the hills in this don't look good, so I've had to add in a couple hundred rocks into this wall and the surrounding walls, well, hills, just to make it look a bit more natural, a bit more like you'd see in a zoo, although I am conscious that I keep using the same rock over and over and over again, so I do try and change it up, but I think it looks okay. Shortly after that I am putting in some moss, which I've not used before because it's not the nicest texture, it's a really odd texture, but I end up adding quite a bit of moss into the rocks, into the recesses and around, just to try and change up what I typically use. I think it came out looking okay, but I do end up taking a little bit of it away because of the amount of coverage that the sheep have. I think they only have like 30%, if I remember correctly. I then add in these lovely trees, and I try to make it look like horns at the top of the rock. And then I actually really like the way that these trunks looks, and I thought it would be interesting to make kind of like a barrier out of them, so that they can't pass those. I'm okay with it. I think it looks okay. It's different, it's more unique. It's not natural per se, but I kind of had it like a fantasy kind of big thorns kind of area, and I've done that by laying them down and using the trunks as kind of as if they were real, you know, like they were coming out and the thorns had come out of the rocks and stuff. I don't know, I think it looked okay, and it meant I didn't have to build another fence, but it did take quite a while to get it how I wanted it, to be honest with you, and the rocks took a little bit more work to make it how I wanted it. I then copied the fence to make it uniform across the zoo, well, across the North American side, with the logs and the wire mesh. Again, it's quite tedious sometimes having to do this because you need to move things individually. It doesn't like snap to the fence, which is unfortunate. Obviously it is a custom built thing, so I wouldn't expect it to, but I think in the new iteration it might be quite interesting to have something where it kind of like snaps to the fence a little more. I don't know. I then added this plaster wall and got some planks and turned it into like a brown colour and tried to make almost like a barn. I realised that I could just use the barnyard kit, but I don't have it yet, so this is how I built it. It's pretty basic. It's just a wall and some wood. I then add a roof once I've decided on where I'm putting this, because I needed it to kind of fill the area as much as possible and not get in the way of all the fence. Obviously I've got the flooring in there as well. Now I couldn't really decide what I wanted to do for a roof, so I used the plank again, or a similar kind of plank, and made this ends up being glass, but I kind of made it a bit more barn-like as best as I could. I did add in some lights which will come up, and I added in this sort of top to make it a bit more flush with itself, because it didn't seem to, that those corrugated iron pieces do not seem to line up. Maybe I was doing something wrong, but they just don't seem to line up. I then added in this little sheep sign. I don't know why. I thought it would be interesting. It was just something a bit different, you know. It wasn't my best internal build. Well, I say internal. It wasn't my best hard shelter build, but it wasn't my worst by a long shot. And then it added a hanging basket for extra fun. And added some bushes, which I ended up having to take out because the sheep don't like them. I turned that into some hedge. I then added rocks randomly around the area so that they can have something else to climb. It's a bit more height in the enclosure, and they do actually climb it, kind of. They tend to sort of jump from the second step onto the third step. It's very weird because they jump weird. It's kind of devilish, I have to say. I then adjusted the barrier to make sure that there was no escaping, and then I had to change this because I didn't like the way it looked, so I made it look as best as I could by adding in a person and then seeing if the height was correct so that they could come in and out still. I tried to add some water here, but it just wasn't doing what I wanted it to, and I think that's because I had the rocks laying around. So I ended up putting in a water pump and kind of secreting it into the rock a little, and I added the food at the top as well as all of the enrichment that I kind of wanted, without it looking overbearing and kind of too fake. Yes, maintenance always comes up. I always get distracted whenever I play this game. I get distracted by the maintenance and the little bits that I haven't done. Do some painting of the terrain, because I quite like adding in dirt and making it seem as if they're walking the same place all the time. I think it's a good way of making it look a bit more realistic. This is the hedge that I was talking about. I added a few of those and had to get rid of some bits because, yeah, their amount that they can handle is quite small. Then finished off this enclosure by doing the sides and putting some flowers into those pieces. I don't know if I show it in this. I probably do because editing. Oh yes, here we go. So I had some flowers into here. I had to be a bit careful because if you go too close to the enclosure part, it counts towards the sheep. So I had to make sure that I took some bits away and just added in some lighting, some benches and some trash bins. And that is pretty much that So I'll leave you to the look, the afterlook, the pan, the cinematic. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.